Good morning, Baltimore. It's lit in here.
Yes, it is.
Man,
Yeah,
if I was a fly on the wall,
man.
and I was the fly on the wall,
You didn't get squashed though.
you tuned in to good, right? No fly squats.
Yeah.
You tuned in to Good Morning Baltimore. We having a great time. We just had so much energy, wisdom, and knowledge walk in the room. Not that it wasn't nothing in here.
Oh, it's a lot in here.
Just
It's
to
a
add
lot in
on.
here,
Uh-huh.
but these brothers just came and just kind of elevated the temperature a little bit.
Yes.
We got my man,
Uncle Joe.
Uncle Joe.
Uncle Joe.
And he
What's up,
brought a
bro?
friend along. They look like Big Percy and Lil Seymour from Uptown Saturday Night.
Wow.
Throwback.
Throwback.
Throwback reference.
Yeah. It's a combo in here. So
Hey, and we'll get to that. I'm glad to be back. Happy Wealthy Wednesday.
Happy Wealthy Wednesday.
And you guys know I was listening before I pulled up to the building.
Yes, indeed.
And when you start talking about Kanye and we start talking about business, I can't ignore the subject matter on a Wealthy Wednesday without talking about someone that says he's personified wealth. Talking about, at least 2 weeks ago or so, he was the wealthiest black person in America. And of course, we know that that's supposedly changed today. But I just want to go in real quick and offer this perspective, if y'all would allow me.
Okay.
That y'all allow me just to give a little perspective.
Preach on, Uncle Joe.
Kanye, to me, isn't someone that in this situation we should pay too much attention to in terms of the person. We all know about his controversies, his ways, how he says certain things, how he asks for support at certain moments, and how he rejects certain support at different moments.
Okay.
But looking at the bigger picture, okay, looking at what's happened, not so much looking at Kanye, but looking at what's happened. What do we see when we see the big picture? Okay, we see there was Kanye West was accused of making anti-Semitic comments, right? And we see the outcry from that. We see the results from that, right?
Right.
Now, has anyone asked, and this is just pointing out things about power structures, about financial wealth and unity, okay? Do we know the percentage of Americans that are Jewish? Any idea? Take a guess on what percent you believe of the total population that are Jewish.
This is very small.
I'm gonna say 8%.
8%? 6%?
It's very small. I don't know the
I have no
exact
idea.
number, but I know it's very small. I don't even think it's double digits.
It's 2.4%.
Right.
2.4%. We know that, as we discussed the other week, that African Americans or blacks are 13.8% of the population, Hispanic almost 20, and then the rest non-Hispanic whites is what they consider themselves. So we know that when it comes as a population number, when it comes to the Jewish population in America, it's not a majority number, right? But we do know when there have been offenses made, that a lot of that group seemingly, whether it be on a business level or on a personal level, move in unison. And then when that movement in unison happens, you see big results. So when we see that, I think looking at the bigger picture, it's not to say, let's look at every person that's Jewish believes this about Kanye. No, that's not right to say. We can't say that they all 100% move in unison. But we can say, how did they develop that level of power, that level of influence, where when they are offended in any type of way, a response can happen of that magnitude. When we've seen in the past, Don Imus, after he made his nappy headed you know what about the Rucker girls,
Right.
well, he was still on the radio. People don't know he got fired by CBS, but he was still on the radio for another 6 to 7 years. He was never canceled on Twitter. He was not revoked anywhere else. But he didn't make a comment about all groups. He made one about a specific group. So in looking at that, we have to think about it ourselves when it comes to wealth not just in money, but in power. How do we utilize our wealth to then have that much influence in these type of situations? That's why I'm taking it really off of Kanye and looking at just an example. We're looking at a real life example of what wealth can do.
Right. Well, the way that happens, and this comes from Dr. Claude Anderson in the Powernomics.
Yep.
You have to own your own media. You have to buy politicians, and that's right. That's what I said. Buy
Okay.
politicians.
Okay.
You have to have your own infrastructures for schools, banking, the financial markets, housing, all of that. That all has to be relegated by your own community. Therefore, you can have a collective economic response, not just getting angry and asking someone to do something for you. You have to make it count where it hurts in the pocketbook, and we collectively don't do that.
What you said was a good point, because when I brought up Don Imus, one of the things I look up all his research, when he got that job in a New York radio station, okay, after being fired by CBS, that person that owns the station was the head of the Manhattan Republican Party. So when you talk about politics being involved too and having certain friendships and relationships, I agree with you. You know, that's another example of, well, he might have lost one friend, but he had another friend and organization over here, which went deeper than just money. It went to politics, it went into network. And that allowed him, despite those comments, which we called Kanye's, or someone called Kanye's comments anti-Semitic. What he said was blatantly racist.
Right.
You know, just blatantly racist, yet he continued. And this was back in 2007. We're in 2022 now.
Right.
So it was that's the main thing I wanted to get into, really just looking at this as an example, as an opportunity to just see how things work and then learn from it. Because most of us are not going to reach Kanye's status. You know what I mean? We're not going to be able to marry into a wealthy family that has a lot of influence in the world. We're not going to be a superstar. We're not creatively that much of a superstar, and we certainly may not have the platform he has. But the picture of what we can learn from the overall infrastructure in America when it comes to politics, when it comes to wealth, I think it's very interesting. I think that's something we should definitely focus on and then learn from it. And he said it, I'm gonna be honest, he said it, he did say that he was jealous of that infrastructure. I think that it's time to move beyond jealousy.
Right.
It's time. We're in 2022. We were talking about our own media. We have the ability to reach consumers directly. Forgive me for quoting Dame Dash. You know what I mean? But that's what's being spoken about we can go direct to consumer now. So let's not be in awe of the infrastructure that's in place. Let's not be jealous. Let's just do something.
Right. And I think the issue is too many times, and even with the Black Lives Matter movement, right, which translates to the police department. Who controls the police? The politicians. So if we own the politics, right, and not just, you know, window dressing, once we buy our politicians, they will put the pressure on the police department, and that's when you'll stop seeing us get shot and black people get shot unarmed.
See,
and until we have a collective response like the Jewish community, we're always going to be asking other people to do something for us.
And I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you know, in Baltimore City, we are the majority of politicians when it comes to skin color.
Right.
Now your actions, that's left to be judged. I mean, we got the election coming up, but nevertheless, I can't say that in Baltimore City.
It's what it is the point that you brought up about them only being 2%, a little over 2%. Of the population, right? It's quality over quantity.
Gotcha.
And so because so many powerful positions are held and they can attack you on multiple fronts, financially, politically, socially, then it's complete and total. And what happens is once you're labeled anti-Semitic, anybody who deals with you, then they are also now an enemy. And that makes them backed off, even if they're not Jewish, because they just don't want the pressure.
Gotcha. Now, look, this is a perfect example and a perfect time to transition and what we're getting into, because what we spoke about, building a network, okay? Having politicians, having wealth in the business community and moving in unison. Let me tell you something. This week I said I was going to talk about the rivalry, talk about CityvsPoly, but that's what it's really about. We're talking about a network of people that have built up Baltimore over 100 plus years. Right. You know, going back to the 1800s. A lot of people, if you're not aware, as I get ready to transition into what we're going to talk about, they may not be aware, but you know Harbor Place? You know, Harbor Place, the subway system? You know the National Aquarium. We know the Civics. Well, it used to be the Civic Center.
No, I still call it
Civic
Center.
Center.
Yeah. Look, I said it because of what was said before. You know, certain people may not know it, but the two people that were most responsible for that happening was two City College graduates. Okay, William Dowd Schaefer and also Bob Embry. You know, people may not know that most of the apartment buildings, the public housing buildings, and also a lot of the different parts of Johns Hopkins University and such was built by a Poly graduate. You know, people may not know that over 100 And I say, and half of them seem like they still serving today, but over 100 of our local judges, of our politicians, whether it be everybody that's been from the mayor's seat to city council, were graduates of city or poly. You know, and also people may not recognize or know that with this tradition going so long, how much money has been given to Baltimore City directly from both schools' alumni continuously year over year over year over year. See, it's a tradition that's not just about two schools. I always say this before I get into it. I say, look, city is always before poly for me, okay? They say poly before city.
I'm looking at the hoodie. I see the hoodie.
City is always before poly, but see, both schools start with the name Baltimore. It's Baltimore City College. It's Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. Baltimore comes first. So a big part of the tradition is giving back to Baltimore. And a big part of that tradition is also teaching people about that. And that's what my friend who I brought in, who also was my classmate back at City, this is a Rosedale official, you know what I mean, guy, neighborhood guy that I grew up with. Also, Morgan too?
Morgan State.
Morgan State's
Okay.
on right here.
Right,
So we got
Morgan
Morgan
State.
in the building. We got one of your own, Anthony TJ Pay, the owner
Really?
of Brainstream Media, and also the person that has for at least, 6 years?
2017 started on this project, so that's
almost 6 years.
Yeah, almost six.
Almost
pushing
6 years has been working on documenting not only the football game and the celebration, but this entire story going back to before any of us were born. So I just want you guys to give a round of applause for a local entrepreneur, someone that's furthering the tradition by not only teaching people about the history, but making history. Anthony TJ Pay, welcome to the show, bro.
That's an
There we
intro,
go,
son.
There we go.
Well,
That's like a
goodness
Kings of
gracious,
Comedy
thank you.
intro right
Thank you
there.
for that intro, Mr. Lord.
Hey, you know,
I got upset up in my seat. I'm starting to feel like, man, I'm the man. Golly.
Hey.
But yeah, what Joe said is definitely on point concerning both schools, the city and the poly side. Of course, I'm a city guy, so like you said, city always comes before poly. So,
Right.
you know, they'll say something different. You know, and some of the amazing people we interviewed, they definitely said something different. But we're definitely here to celebrate Baltimore on a whole.
Yeah.
You know, city and poly are a big representation of Baltimore. You know, when you say oldest rivalry in the United States, that's a Baltimore thing.
Yeah.
You know, some people separated all city, poly. I went here, I went there. But all the amazing people that have come from these two schools have transcended, not just, you know, we was talking about Kanye. There's people that have transcended from just a regional area that are making moves in this world.
Yes.
You know, some of the congressmen, some of the people that have played in this game.
Kurt Smoke.
Kurt Smoke, the mayor.
The mayor,
You know,
former mayor.
Elijah.
Elijah,
Right.
all these people come from these schools, and they have, you know, transcended, and they're making rulings and throwing things that affect our United States of America.
Right.
So that's something in itself, you know.
Quick question for you though. Who are some of the individuals that you were able to interview as part of the documentary?
Oh, some of the people we were able to interview. The list is long.
Yeah.
The list is long. Like I said, we started in 2017. Independent project, budgeted straight from my company. We've interviewed Kurt Smoke. We've interviewed Elijah. Elijah Cummings' last interview before he passed away, actually.
Wow.
He rescheduled for us. We were, of course, just happy to get on his books. He was like, hey, if you want to push it, you can push it. But he happened to push it up because he knew what the project was. And then, you know, a month later, he wasn't with us. So we was the last real interview. You know, some of the pros that have played at City and Poly, you know, Antonio Freeman, you know, who was a Super Bowl champ.
That's
Yeah,
my guy,
Poly,
too. I know
Virginia
him, too.
Tech. Who, Buttons? Buttons, the guy?
Yeah, but
You know, Buttons, he's Baltimore guy.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
Baltimore guy,
right,
so we
right.
call him
Same
Buttons,
thing.
you know. Brian Johnson, who was also an NFL player for 12 years.
Yep.
You know, we talked about Emory. We got an interview with Mr. Emory. Though he didn't play football, he's still, like we said, he's a mover and a shaker, you know. That harbor that we walk in, he's a part of that, you know, a big major part of that. Some other people that we interviewed, goodness gracious, the list just goes on and on.
Yeah, both sides, right?
Yeah, both sides.
Y'all only naming city people though. You named one Poly person.
One Poly person? Did
That was
I?
Buttons, yeah.
No, hold up. He got the entire interview, and he's going through, has plenty of Poly. First of all, let me let you know,
Don't do
the
that.
City Poly Love documentary team has someone from Poly on the team.
I'm feeling the fixes
Hold on.
in over here,
We
though.
got
Fixes
Poly on
in.
the team too,
We got
okay?
Poly on the team.
And
We
not,
definitely
and not
got
to
Poly
mention,
on
we
the
go over the
team.
history, because I say this, a lot of Poly people, we've been talking trash this week, but a lot of them need to learn their history. How in the 80s, look, we lost for almost 16 years straight
That's true.
to Poly, and not to mention we didn't even score. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
The funny
remember
thing-
that.
The funny thing concerning that's why you probably was on.
No, I remember because I actually went to Poly.
Okay, you're a Poly guy.
Now, let me clear that up.
Yes, sir.
I didn't graduate from Poly.
They take offense with that. They
But
take
I
offense with
went to
that.
Poly.
Right.
But the thing is, I remember when Poly had that great football team. Like, their
Absolutely.
defense went unscored upon for like 3 years straight.
Yeah.
Man.
That's how good that team was. So, and City, wasn't that good. But then at some point, you guys kind of flipped
back.
it
Yeah.
and flipped
And
it
that-
back. But here's what I really appreciate about this rivalry.
Okay.
It's a rivalry, but you guys still have an appreciation for each school.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You guys rep to the fullest. Like nobody rep City like City people. Nobody rep Poly like Poly people. But you guys still can appreciate the impact and the influence each school has on the city and worldwide.
Right.
And so even though you guys, the City Poly is a rivalry, they're not enemies. And that's what I always appreciated about that.
Right. I mean, when you talk about that, what you're saying, the project is called City vs. Poly or Poly vs. City Love. You know, whether you went to City, whether you went to Poly, it's a love thing. And when you're 16, 17, I played in the game for years. When you're 16, 17, it ain't no love. I play
it's-
ball.
Right.
I don't like these guys.
Right,
They the
right,
rival.
right.
But when you get older, you start looking at it and get perspective of it, and you see it clear, and you see that wow, we both come from these schools. There are two schools that you have to get accepted into. You know, like you just can't wake up. I live on this side of town.
Students, right?
Right. I live on this side of town, and I go here.
Right.
No, you have to
Have a certain
have a certain average, have a
Oh,
certain have a certain average, have a certain pedigree, have a certain things going for you. And once you're in, that love and that relationship with the school builds. There's not too many people that go to either school that leave or graduate from it and will go back to their high school experience saying, "No, I hated high school." It's very few. I've met other people, that went to high schools, and certain high schools, they're like, "I don't care about my high school. It's just, growing up. It's where you went. You went to high school." So, you talked about the experience of that's them teams, 17, it was 17 years. 1970 to 1986. 87 before we won one. And a couple of guys that we interviewed, the person who made the big play in the game they won, Chris Smith, the quarterback, when I interviewed him, he talked about the 86 season. And he talked about one of his teammates, Kenny Newsom, he said, it was your year, my junior year, when we finally scored on them. We hadn't scored or gotten past the 50-yard line in 3 years against them. When we finally scored on them, we realized that Poly, they wasn't invincible. They wasn't Drago and Rocky or
Still
something.
beat them. We landed a punch.
But we landed a punch. So it set them up for the next year
Right.
to win and then make the rivalry back, get it back to where we're at. Right now, City is 2 games in the league because they're on a 10-game winning streak.
That's right.
So the whole weird thing about it is a 2-game separation between them, even though they've been playing since 1889.
Right.
And all of it is streaks. It seems like the early '60s, Kurt Smoke in them days. They were running them off the
Kurt
field.
Smoke was a beast.
Oh, Kurt Smoke was the quarterback. He was the man.
My dad
He was the man.
actually graduated from City.
Okay.
And he told me about Kurt Smoke. That's how I knew he played football. He said he used to call him the rifle
Right.
because he had a real strong arm.
Exactly.
Really good.
Exactly.
Another thing I want to make sure that we point out just about the rivalry, but about the schools themselves, is the opportunity it presents in Baltimore. I spoke about this with TJ privately, but people don't understand that Baltimore City College and Poly both provides the opportunity for kids that, let's say, come from a background of poverty. You come from a background of nothing, but you going to school sometimes with millionaire children.
Yeah.
So when I was talking about
That's true.
networking, remember I was talking about networking, okay? Because I went to City, because some people went to Poly, there are some meetings that I'm able to have just based off of that tradition where it wouldn't have come from my family and my environment. I did not grow up from wealth. I didn't have those opportunities. My cousins don't have these opportunities, but I've sat in the room with the Able Foundation. I've sat in the room with certain people just off of work ethic, but also, look, oh, you went to City, I'm gonna at least give you 2 seconds. Oh, you associated with Poly, I'm gonna give you 2 seconds to hear you out because I know you're from Baltimore. And I'm saying that there are no other schools in the city, public schools, which offer the opportunity for us to build networks just because now, guess what? I went to school with your child. So even if you racist, even if you don't like my people, your kid like me. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
And also giving shout out to Poly, like I said, and showing that it's not biased right here today, even though I'm in the all city. Listen, I'm gonna shout this out. Poly was the first school
To integrate.
and not high school, public school in Baltimore to integrate 2 years before Brown versus the Board of Education. You know what I mean? And some of that was reluctant, but they led the way in that. City can't never beat Poly, and that Poly started that. You feel what I'm saying? It's so much history, and these are things that you learn through the documentary. There's going to be a viewing, an opportunity to not so much see the documentary because it's still in the works. This is something that, as my guy had been telling you, look, he talked to me even since the first phone call. You've been self-funding this with a little bit of support, but been filming year after year after year, getting as much footage, putting in the work. And now it's almost at the end point. Not there yet, but it still needs more support. And we want to offer you guys the opportunity to get a sneak peek of what that process is like. So not even if you're just about, City Poly, if you just love Baltimore. And in fact, here it is, if you are an inspiring filmmaker, okay, you want to make a documentary, this is something that you should attend and be a part of because you're going to learn something, not to mention there's going to be people in the building that might could change your life. So we're inviting people out tonight. What's the logistics of it tonight, TJ?
We're at Nexac Cinema over on Ricestown Road.
Black owned.
Black owned.
Yes,
Black
black owned.
With 7 and 9, we're going to be doing one preview. And we may run it back twice. We were talking about running it back twice. Running time for the preview that we're giving is about 35 minutes.
Okay.
We're looking at this as a doc series, a 4-part series. So this is pretty much a rough of that first episode. Some tweaks are going to be made, but a rough of that first episode. And then moving forward, like we said, some people that may be able to change your life going to be in the house. Some people that are looking to fund us and talk to us about it, but we definitely looking for all support. Anybody that can come through. We said we didn't shout out any Poly people. Let me shout out Nick Mosby. He's been
my man, Big Brother Nick.
Big Brother Nick has been a big part of the project. And then he spoke on if you make my head, get to talking and I get to go, oh, okay, yeah, that.
Yeah.
But when he said about the integration, we did interview Cool Billy Murphy, lawyer. He was part of that integration. He was one of the first people to integrate 2 Poly. He's a Cherry Hill guy.
Yep.
And he was getting bust all the way up to Poly.
Yeah.
Wow, this is crazy because I remember being the master of ceremonies and introducing him at Poly as one of the keynote speaker.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was talking about all of that stuff
Mhm.
and the racism and all the
Yes,
things that
he
he
definitely
faced,
did
and
all that.
especially because of the way he looks.
Right.
If anybody doesn't know Billy Murphy, you might not think you're sitting next to a black man.
Mhm.
And he would always tell me these stories of how people would talk around him, not knowing
Oh,
he was a black man.
Exactly.
And it's just a lot of knowledge. But also to your point, Joe, I remember going to school and we're catching the bus. And the students are coming to school in Jaguars and Mercedes Benz. I mean, the kids,
Different.
because it's like you really are going to school with like millionaires and wealthy people.
Absolutely. So look,
It's
we
private
have
school education for private school.
Right, a private school
Private school education for free. Both
from
schools.
a public school, exactly.
And look, just to let you know, this is one part of the celebration throughout this entire week. You have City Poly Fest, Poly City Fest, where we have this tonight, but then also throughout the week you have a different gathering, celebrating, and also raising money. A big part of what's going to happen this year, in fact, let me throw this out there. Over the last 3 years, $40,000 has been given from these celebrations to each school. Okay, and this year, we're going to do, or the City Poly Fest crew, they're going to do a scholarship grant up to $100,000 with $50,000 going to both schools. So again, a part of this tradition again in giving back is not just celebrating and partying, it's taking those funds that we can raise from this, from going to the game and the ticket sales, from going to the City Poly Fest, on Saturday. The game is at Hopkins University on Friday. From all these different events, look, these people that are working hard behind the scenes, many who I know, they work hard to keep this going so that they can provide opportunity for young people going forward. It's not always about celebrating the old and what has been. It's also looking at the now. Part of the documentary process is not just also interviewing people from the past. We're dealing with students today. We're dealing with some that have, from the beginning of the documentary, that from Poly and City that started off in high school, but now could be in the NFL in the next coming years.
Absolutely.
And not to mention, I always tell TJ the other part that he should get a lot of footage on is the making of this process. Because let me tell you, this guy has been coaching a lot of our kids for 10 plus years. He's a coach now at City, but I'm saying he was coaching in Pop Warner. I'm just, it's the truth. Hold on, I ain't got to gas up what's true. See here, hold on, here's another part of building a network, and this part of a City tradition. See, as a man, I'm okay with complimenting another man and acknowledging what he's doing. That's part of what we build up in City. You're never afraid to put somebody else up there on the platform for what they've done. Ain't no gassing up over here. These are things that are fact. Otherwise, I wouldn't say nothing. But this goes across the board. This goes for our ladies too. This goes for our ladies of Poly City. And look, shout out to Western too.
Yeah, you got
forgot
to
y'all.
that's
Don't
the other
think I
school.
forgot y'all.
Right, yeah.
You know what I
My
mean?
second
Much
favorite
love.
high school.
Yeah, we are.
Always was.
Listen. And not to mention, look, Joe, as much as he talking City, I always got to put myself on blast because if she listening, she know, well, I was at City. My girlfriend was at Poly. You know what I mean? I can't get on Poly but so much. Pull my card at any time. But nevertheless, again, guys, we invite you out to celebrate with us this week. This is a Baltimore celebration, okay? This is not just about City and Poly. City and Poly are the stars of the show, but it's all taking place under the power, under the authority of Baltimore. This is a Baltimore story. We've heard of shows like The Wire. We see all these things that come out about stories about Baltimore, but let's make sure we spread a positive story about Baltimore that's real and that's been going on for hundreds of years, deeper than most traditions in this entire country. So we invite you guys again to come celebrate. Look, I'm sorry if we City Poly'd you out today, but again, understand this is Baltimore. Even if you didn't go to either school, if you're from Baltimore, this is your tradition, this is your celebration. Join us this week. We invite you.
I would encourage that too. My father is a City graduate, so shout out to Andrew Bates, my dad, and of course my pastor who went to Poly, so I gotta shout him out too.
No doubt.
Dr. Reginald Thomas Sr.
Okay.
Mr. Thomas? Yeah, we interviewed him too.
Okay. See, everything's full circle. But that's one thing I really appreciate about the rivalry is I remember going and like it might have been 88, 89, and I was like, wow, the adults are really. It was just so many people come back, and it really is a Baltimore City thing. People get interested and they go to the events, not even really having a connection to Poly or City. So it definitely is a Baltimore tradition, not just a Poly City tradition. So thank you guys, man. We really appreciate Joe. Always welcome, man. You always come in, bring light to the spot. Thank you, brother. Me and this brother have worked together a few times. He reminded me when I saw you, I was like, he looked familiar to me.
Yeah, I looked it up too.
Right, and then it was like we did what it was, the Minute Change.
Minute Change.
Minute Change at the Reginald Lewis Museum. So
All right.
One quick thing, and I want to make sure I do this as Erica always reminds me. Pay, what's your social media for the project and also your personal social media account?
Okay, social media, so you know, that is always a reminder because I'm good for forgetting them too. I'm definitely good for forgetting them. But my personal Instagram is B-Stream Paysky. That's B-Stream Payeski. Company is Brainstream at Brainstream Media. The documentary is at CityvsPoly Love. You know, one of them had to come first. That's all I'm saying. One
Just
of them
say
had
alphabetical.
Alphabetical.
There you go.
There
You're
we
out
go.
of trouble.
But at CityvsPoly Love, definitely check us out today. Next at 7.
And also, just to let you know, I think if you want to follow more about the events for this week, it's at City Poly Fest.
Yep.
Yeah, at City Poly Fest. Y'all know me at Joseph Lork. You can follow me too. I always repost what's going on. But I'm gonna be there tonight, so I'm inviting you guys again to be there tonight. Come join us. Come witness history. Be a part of history. Be a part of learning how to make a documentary film, a series, and also learn more about Baltimore because the history is bigger than last week's game or last year's game or the year before. It's deeper than that. It's Baltimore history. We invite you. We appreciate you, y'all. God bless. Have a great week.
Good night.